Hello and welcome to the Sisters for Fitness Wellness Show. I'm Stephanie Gaines-Bryant. Our guest today is Madeline Long, and she's an ambassador with the American Cancer Society in their project, Voices of Black Women.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you, Stephanie. I am so happy to be here today.
So tell us, what is this project, the Voices of Black Women?
It is a study that American Cancer Society they've done something that no one else is doing. They have decided to focus on why Black women are the ones that are dying at an alarming rate from cancer. And what they're doing with this is not a study around needing any type of blood or urine or anything like that. This is a lifestyle. And they will be following women for 30 years, and which is something that we don't have. There's no data for us. So that's basically what it is.
So how long have you guys been doing this study?
We kicked off the program, I want to say last year. And since then, I think across the country, we have about close to 5,000 women that have enrolled in the program.
Why do you think Black women, we don't get cancer at a higher rate than other populations, but we die more often? What are the reasons that you all have found for that?
Well, that's part of why we're doing this, because to your point, we don't know why. They want to say that it's the environment or it is our lifestyle. And, we have no real data to pinpoint why we are the ones that are dying at an alarming rate. I can tell you in the breast cancer space, one of the things that I believe, and I've been in the breast cancer space since 1999. One of the things I know is we're diagnosed with very aggressive forms of breast cancer. However, that is not, we also are the ones that when we're diagnosed, we kind of drop out. We don't go back to the doctor. We, especially as Black women, we wear the S on our chest. So we're taking care of everyone else and not ourselves. And a lot of researchers want to say it's because women in, underserved areas. But it's also women in areas like Bowie and, the areas where we do have the resources. It's a lot that has to do with we're taking care of everyone but ourselves. So we're suffering in silence.
What about the whole issue of health disparities?
That's huge. It's huge. I mean, it's, there were a lot of things that happened during COVID. When you look at the Black community, when we were diagnosed, we didn't have the access to the medication, because especially as women, they don't take us serious. So you go to the hospital, you go to the doctor, and we're told you're okay. And so the health disparities is huge. There is a huge issue around equity for Black people. And we take another layer when we add women, Black women, to that. We're not heard, where we have healthcare deserts, where in certain areas there's no healthcare system. And then let's not even talk about having an access to get an appointment. So you can call, and I know you've gone through it because I've gone through it. You call and you say, I need to come in to see the doctor. And if you're not bleeding and you're not half dead, then it's, well, can you come in 6 months? What happens in 6 months? Life. So in 6 months, you're like, whatever that was that made you want to come in, you put that on the back burner. And so we keep putting it on the back burner. But after a while, we as Black women can no longer put our health on a back burner.
So are we just dealing with breast cancer, or are we dealing with all cancers?
We're dealing with all cancers, because when we look at our community, especially Black women, it's colon cancer, it's lung cancer, it's breast cancer, uterine, ovary, all of it. So this is a study that will provide us with data that we can improve health outcomes, because you're only talking to hear yourself talk if you don't have the data.
And like you said, a lot of us are living in these places where we don't have access.
Exactly.
Where it is, if diet and exercise has a lot to do with cancer, we're not getting what we need.
Stephanie, don't start me on the health and wellness side of it. Because yes, getting in to see the doctor is a problem. But if there's a healthcare desert, what do you think is happening when we look at a food desert in terms of quality food? And then understanding the importance. That's why I'm on your show, because when I think about health and wellness, moving, fit, one of the organizations that I absolutely love was Walk America, because Walk America was talking about getting out and walking. Even if there's not a gym in your area, but you can get out every day and put one foot in front of the other. That's fitness. So that's something that we as Black women have to learn, that we have to show up in our own lives.
As a yoga instructor, I've found it hard to get women to see the connection between exercise and their health. It just doesn't.
Moving.
Yeah, and that is so huge. But I have a hard time getting people to see that connection.
Now, I believe in transparency. So for me, we make everything else a priority.
Yes.
And I say that because I'm very driven, type A, always doing, going. But in terms of making time for yoga or making time to work out, I live in a building where the gym is on the first floor. Every day I am making an excuse because I'm either on a Zoom call or at a meeting. But if we don't make ourselves a priority and say, I'm going to start with me first and then everything else will happen, that's important. And so I know what you're saying because I'm sitting here on your show and I'm guilty of that I'm not making myself a priority because I'm so busy wanting to make sure everything else works. What happens when I break down? All of that is all well and fine, because the only thing they're going to do when there's no Madeline is get out the good old girl kit, and they're going to keep it moving.
And that's why getting a mammogram isn't enough. There's so much more that has to be done before, during,
and
after.
I tell my women, a mammogram provides you more information. I'm not discounting screening. I think it's very important. But what happens after the mammogram? If we rely on just getting a mammogram, our numbers are going to continue to go up. I do want my sisters to go in and get a mammogram, but I also want us to live a healthier lifestyle. It's important what we're eating. It's important that we're not moving. It's important, they say sitting is the new smoking. So if we're doing all of those things, Stephanie, I think we're kind of answering some of our own questions around why we're the ones that, yes, this study is important to gather the data because it's all of it. But we have to look at what are the small things that we can do so that we can help ourselves. And I love what you said in terms of yoga. Something, we always think it's moving really fast, getting on the treadmill, doing that. But look at what happens when you are sitting and you're doing yoga and you're able to relax and breathing.
Yes, something as simple as breathing can change your life.
Let me tell you, I have asthma. I never thought it was important. I would not go to my appointments when I was supposed to, I'll use inhaler just when I needed it. COVID came. And I got COVID March of 2020. So I was like early COVID. There was no test for it at the time. There was no medication. So I was in Anne Arundel Medical. I didn't realize that because I didn't do the things to keep my breathing together, when the virus attacked, it attacks the weak organs. My lungs were weak. So I ended up with COVID pneumonia. So I was in Anne Arundel Medical for almost 8 days because of something as important as, and I'm telling you, it's not important to you until you can't. Because when I had COVID pneumonia, I couldn't even take a deep breath. I couldn't yarn because there wasn't enough air going through my lungs.
How are you now?
I have, they call it what? COVID
Long COVID.
Yeah, long COVID. But I'm doing better, but it was a wake up. And so something to me like yoga is very important because we want to be able to properly use our lungs. And so that is something that I'm also talking to women about, is living a healthier lifestyle. Voices only work when we participate with it.
And sometimes the path to wellness can be very frustrating.
Yes.
And off air,
Yes.
we were talking
Yes.
about weight gain and age.
Oh, don't.
And I was telling you how for years and years and years, I've struggled with the whole weight thing, where no matter what I did, no matter how many classes I taught per week, no matter how many collard greens and kale I ate, my weight would fluctuate in this 10-pound range, no matter what I did.
know.
In the summer, I would be 5 pounds lighter.
I
In
know.
the winter, I'd be 5 pounds heavier.
Stephanie.
But it was in this, no matter what I did, and I would be conscious, people walking in the studio and them seeing me, and some women were fine. It was like, it's a black woman who looks like me.
Exactly.
Then there were other ones who
Right.
were thinking, how is she going to
How
teach
are you?
me?
Exactly. What in the world? Yes.
Yeah, how's she going to teach me yoga?
Stephanie, don't start me.
And so after COVID, I didn't get sick with COVID until after, like
Okay.
years after
Okay.
COVID. But I got sick with the diabetes. My sugar just skyrocketed, and I was placed on medication. And just suddenly, to my shock, I didn't even know I was losing weight. I'm like, why are my pants big?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so they put me on the medicine, and the weight dropped right off. After all
of
those
the-
years.
And I told you off air, I was that one who would have been in your studio. Okay, let me just say this, because I would have been like, well, why is she's teaching, and so obviously she's not taking her own advice. That would be me.
Yes.
And it wasn't until really like last year, like around December, from October to now, that I just started gaining weight. I've always been like a 6. And so I started gaining a little more and a little more. And of course, your friends, they are your mirror, because the first thing oh my God, you look, because you gained a little weight. Oh my gosh. And then the clothes become the other, telltale. And I said, what am I not doing? I mean, I was still working out. I don't eat very much. And I just kept gaining, and I would talk to my doctor about it, and she said, well, I know you don't want to hear this, but it's something called menopause. And I was like, that has nothing to do with it, because I am a breast cancer survivor. And so in 2011, when I was diagnosed, I had to go on the medication. And the medication, they said, would throw you into. Well, Stephanie, I thought that was behind me. I said, okay, well, I had my throw into. No, then 60s came, and now I am really in menopause. And that's when I realized it's going to take more than what I was doing before. But it's real. It's real. All the symptoms.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. It's okay. So I had to learn to breathe through it. Because I partnered with some friends, and, we are actually doing a lot beginning October in the women's health space, because even though I've been doing it for at least 1999 in the breast cancer space around, breast cancer, and then helping with mortality with Black women, I now want to make it a little more targeted. as it relates to us and in aging, and especially the women that have breast cancer that are getting into their 50s and 60s, because there are things that we have to do a little differently than other women, because one, we're always having to be very careful about our health. And so we don't get to just kind of say, I'm going to starve myself to be able. No, we have to do some other things.
And I love the way you're saying we.
Yes.
Letting women know you are not alone in this.
No, Stephanie, I don't know if I realized that each year you do get a little older. I wasn't willing to accept that. I didn't even realize I was a senior until I was doing some work. I used to do work in Bowie with seniors, and I'm on the mic, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this for you, right? And so when I said, I think it was 55 and above, and at that time I was 58, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing this for us. But it was awesome because we get to do this together. No, this is not about living our lives through a window. This is about living our lives with the mirror, so we can show up in our own lives. I am a grandmother, and I want my grandchildren to not see me, if we're all going to die, but it's how we do it. So we get to live our way out of life, and that's what I want to do.
And we also have to mention the whole mental health part of it.
God, behavior health, mental health, it's very important. Because what I find is a lot of our women are suffering in silence. Especially our single moms, you're having to be the breadwinner. You're having to juggle all of it. That's hard. And then we look at the economy, look at where we are. It's a lot going on. So as my young people will tell me, life is lifing. And so if it's lifing, how do we life and how do we get through this? Well, we get through this by addressing it and not pretending that we're not going through. I'm loving these organic conversations that are happening with myself and other women, that we're actually talking about the things that we're going through. So it's awesome.
And also, having lived through cancer, you also have questions about your mortality.
Yes.
And that's something mentally
Yes.
that we need to cope with.
Exactly.
The fact that as we get older,
Exactly.
and my mother, she was so morbid. She'd always say, you have more years behind you than in front of you.
You do.
What are you going to do?
Yes. And, when I think about, what life looks like as we get older, that's not something, we have a lot of appointments that we're going to miss or that we may miss. That's one that we're not. So how you get to that appointment is very important. And that happens through what we said before, health and wellness, living a healthier life. I look at over the weekend, Malcolm Jamal Warner passed away.
Oh.
However, we don't know the day or the time. We think that it's about, getting to your 80s, 90s. No, he was 54?
Yes.
And so we have to live our way out of life. That's all that we have to do.
And we don't think that someone because you look at his pictures, he's young and he's
full of life.
handsome and he's full of life.
Yes.
The old aren't the only ones who die.
Death
we don't
is
know
not for
who,
the old,
we don't know when.
Death is not just for the old. We don't know the day or the time. I'm a pastor, and I used to be a homicide chaplain. And I did that for
That had to be tough.
It was tough, but I feel like out of all the things I've done in my life, Stephanie, that was the most rewarding, because I got to be with people when they most needed to know that there was a God. Because their loved ones left home in the morning. This wasn't hospice. They left home with good intentions and did not return. And so it helped me to be who I am right now, because I realized we just don't know. Some of my hardest cases were people, lady in a car, stray bullet hit her, killed her. And so we don't know. But what we do know is what we have right here. and how we live each moment is so important. So we don't get to take life for granted.
So what happens once the study is complete?
So they will, once the person signs up, they will, the Voices of Black Women, what do you call it? The principal investigators, they will study, they will follow them for 30 years. So every year they will get, they will complete, like, just kind of giving them an opportunity to see and follow what they're doing in their life, in their lifestyle, so that they can actually have the data, each year. And they're going to literally follow women, and our goal is 100,000 women. So we're trying to get the word out so that we can get the data, so we can follow the women. So after the 30 years, we have data that can improve our lifestyle, because they will be able to use that and study the patterns to know, this is working, but this isn't working. And data is important, because when we have the data, we're able to see trends and we can follow certain parts. I'm so impressed that American Cancer Society is targeting us.
So are they targeting women from all communities? Because we're not just one voice.
All communities.
Okay.
25 through 55 though. And women that have not been diagnosed with breast cancer. So although I am a survivor, I am more of the voice of, and I've been with American Cancer Society with their Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. So I'm literally helping the Voices of Black Women study. But we're really trying to get women that have not been diagnosed so that we can see, because this is more about preventative. Because Stephanie, we don't want to talk about preventative or prevention. We really are all about, following or having women that have been diagnosed. Everything that you see usually is around the ones that already have it. But what happens, or what could happen, if we could get to women before?
And also, what role do you think genetics plays?
In the breast cancer space, we have found that it's not always, about genetics. You have the BRCA1, BRCA2, but there's so many more mutations, and so and it's going to take more studies. But I do think that genetics has a lot to do with so many of the other illnesses and diseases in our community. And so if you know that there's diabetes in the family, why wouldn't you want to have a healthier lifestyle? Because, not to say that you're going to get it, but if it's in the family, what can we do so that we don't get it?
And so you're taking, so people can still sign up?
They can still sign up. We're 25 to 55, and enrollment is now. And we're really pushing, because we really want to get women into the program so that we can be actively doing, following and studying and gathering the data.
If you were to, I don't know if you have daughters?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, what do we tell our daughters about where we've been and about where they can go as far as wellness for this next generation?
I tell my daughters often, my youngest daughter's really into fitness. She is, because her dad's family, or her dad's grandmother passed from complications from breast cancer. So she wanted to make sure that she lived a different lifestyle. But I'm constantly telling my daughters we can, it's how we show up. And you mentioned mental health. I'm also talking to them about the stress, because when we think about our lives, we always think about everything else. But studies have shown that stress is like right at the top, 1 or 2 in terms of a leading cause of death. And so I'm telling them, watch your stress level. It's, we don't have to tackle everything. And then I'm sharing with them, no, it's okay to have that McDonald's every once in a while, but don't make that
your meal plan.
Your meal plan, because that's what we do, right?
Because it's quick, it's cheap,
exactly,
it's easy.
Exactly.
To just stop on the way home from work instead of going home, oh man, do I have to cook tonight?
But what I'm doing is I'm starting to talk to chefs and to get them to go into, like one chef, her name is True, she is working and going into working in communities where they're returning citizens. She's working with vulnerable communities where she's teaching classes on how to fix a meal where it doesn't have to cost a lot. But if we're not, we have to pass that on to the next generation.
Yes, we do.
Because this is the microwave. These are microwave babies. Everything they want is instant. But there's a cost to instant gratification. And so we want our children to not to be short-term, but to be long-term. It's the long game that's going to win it for us.
Now, before we wrap it up, off air we were talking about the importance of sleep.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I have to be transparent about that as well. See, I've come on your show and now I'm just telling everything. But I am only learning how to sleep now. And I think that I really started to do better because they said it was a connection between a lack of sleep and not just death, but dementia and Alzheimer's. And so for me, that was frightening. And I remember earlier on having to take something to go to sleep. And now what I'm doing is I'm shutting what I call my world off so that I can just kind of just sit and go off to sleep without needing some type of aid. But sleep is very important, Stephanie. We have got to do a better job around making sure we get those 7 or 8 hours of sleep. And that's why when you talk about yoga and meditation, I know that from having a friend who is, she's a yoga instructor, she's always been that one to talk about the importance of yoga and meditation and just walking and calming our spirits.
Yes, and just
Exactly.
sitting and just sit and be.
Because we don't want to do that, right? If we sit and be, it's like
I
I'm
gotta
supposed to be
do it.
doing something, right? And that would be me. But I've reached out to Howard University because they have a sleep study program to see how we can bring that into our community.
Well, we're going to have to wrap it up here, but thank you so
You're
much
so-
for joining me
Stephanie.
today. We've been talking to Madeline Long. She is an ambassador for the American Cancer Society and Voices of Black Women. I like that.
Thank you.
You've been watching the Sisters for Fitness Wellness Show. I'm Stephanie Gaines-Bryant. Enjoy the rest of your day.